Hello, Brooks Avenue family and friends. Thank you for coming along with us on this Holy Week journey. I'm Jeremy Marshall, Family Discipleship Minister at Brooks Avenue Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. In Mark's Gospel, Thursday of Holy Week begins at verse 12 of chapter 14, and so much is packed into that fateful day. Early in the day, Jesus sends his disciples out to make preparations for the Passover meal, the memorial of the night God saved his people from slavery by killing the firstborn sons of Egypt. While they're eating the Passover, two notable things happen. First, Judas goes out to betray Jesus to the authorities. But second, and this is of course still with us, Jesus took some bread and wine from the table and gave us the Lord's Supper. This is the church's memorial of how God saved us from Satan, from the guilt of sin and the power of death, through the death of his Son, his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. Christ has become for us the Passover Lamb, whose body we feast upon and whose blood has been smeared around the doorpost of our hearts to save us from judgment. After that, there was nothing left to do but go out to watch and pray. And by the time our passage for today ends in verse 52, the traitor Judas has led a posse of temple guards in riot gear out to arrest Jesus, and the rest of his disciples have fled into the night. With all of that going on, I want to zoom in on one particular section. While Jesus was praying in the garden that night, Hebrews 5:7 says he offered prayers and appeals with loud cries and tears. And in verse 34, Mark 14, he said to his disciples, "My soul is swallowed up by sorrow, even to the point of death." But his disciples kept falling asleep. So in verse 38, he came and he woke up Peter and he said, "Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." That's what I want to focus on for the rest of our time. See, this word wasn't just for Peter. Jesus means this for every believer. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Those words describe the lifelong daily struggle of every disciple of Jesus. St. Paul speaks of it at length in Romans chapter 7, and you can hear and feel the frustration. He says, "The desire to do what is good is with me, but not the ability to do it. For I do not do the good that I want to do, but I practice the evil that I do not want to do." In other words, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Here's how he sums up his daily struggle. "With the mind, I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh, the law of sin." Romans 7:25. Does that feel familiar to you? Yes, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Christ has created a clean heart in you, and he's renewed a right spirit within you, and you love the Lord with your new heart, and your upright spirit hates your sin and wants to obey. But you find that your flesh every day wants to do its own thing. Isn't it comforting then to hear Jesus simply, knowingly, tenderly name your condition? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. But he doesn't leave us there either. He tells us what we can do in the midst of the struggle and the strife, and yes, even the seasons of spiritual sleepiness. Stay awake, he says, and pray so that you won't enter into temptation. We can only begin to go where our spirit wants us to go, not by the power of our flesh, not even flesh powered by strong coffee and a bucket of affirmations, but through prayer. Because prayer is where we stir up God's Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to be our strength, because our flesh will always be weak. Pray that the Holy Spirit would put to death the sins of your flesh and grow and mature his good fruit in you. And one more thing. Remember, Jesus also gave us the Lord's Supper. Our flesh is weak, so we need to commune with Christ and feast upon His flesh, which is life for the world, and His blood shed for us for the forgiveness of sins. The table He sets for us every Lord's Day is to give us strength in our weakness for another week. That's all the more reason to join us this Sunday at 10:30 a.m. to hear more about the one whose death has brought us life and whose resurrection will bring us to glory.